What I'm wanting to talk about is my generation, or the youth of today, if you want to call it that. Now, I refer to this mainly as a video response to Miles Dyer, Blade 376, but also my own video. And I'll start off by saying that I hate the person I used to be. Not the person you see in the YouTube videos with the long hair and the whole hippie attitude. No, not that person. That person was alright in my opinion. I'm talking about another person. A person who was apathetic and too cowardly to care about a lot of things, and a lot of the time didn't really give a fuck as long as he had made his own place. That was this person here. Handsome bugger, aren't I? Haven't really changed appearance-wise, I suppose. But my point is that person fit the example of the youth of today. The apathetic generation didn't care. And that person didn't even fit it properly because he still cared about things that went on. He was a conservative, he was a Christian, and he was also probably quite weird because he was outspoken. And the person today might, it's the same body theoretically, but it's a different person, and that person can see things in a totally different perspective. Now, when we talk about the youth of today, I see what I saw in that person, that Charlie Andrews, a lot of distance and uncaring towards the world. But that person didn't even display as much as the rest of them. He still cared about things that went on. He openly supported the Afghanistan war when he was 11 years old. He had interests in travelling, and at his current age has visited a total of 10 countries or so, which isn't that bad really. Despite not being really into travelling, he had an interest in politics, he had an interest in life, and that was an example of the youth of yesterday for me. The youth of today for me is pretty much an apathetic generation really, and my generation gets criticised immensely for being the whole, you weren't part of the 60s, with the hippie culture, you weren't part of the whole 80s, the Reagan 80s, so you weren't part of the Clintonist 90s and the whole culture shift of change. You're part of a generation that relies more on cell phones and DVD players and computers and the internet more than ever, and you don't realise how difficult things were. And we don't realise a lot of things that occur until we experience them firsthand. Until very recently, I didn't realise the difficulty and immense hardship of 9-to-5 work. Until that point, I was completely oblivious to it and just didn't care. I had no sense in the value of money, whereas now I see things in a very different light, and that perspective has occurred over a matter of weeks. My understanding of life has constantly shifted and changed to the point of where I don't really know what's going on. I just question things more than I used to. I don't accept anything completely. I never accept anything as 100% truth, and the generation of today is something that is misunderstood and misrepresented, and considerable amounts of our generation are not apathetic, but they have issues which, due to the new developments of technology, new different things, especially with immigration and everything else, they tend to see things in a biased point of view. And the thing is many people who never experience those points of view will never understand them completely, and I may never understand my own generation, and I could say that much will be written on us in 20 or 30 years' time. In many ways you could say that the hippie culture in the 60s, which my father was part of, were also the same, felt completely how we feel, biased and distant and were never represented at the time. Yet 40 years on, and you see it in a completely different light because times have completely changed, and their perspective, people now 55 at least would think this is what we were feeling at the time, whereas when you're a youth you always seem to think that what you're doing is right. And I think that if there's to be any improvement in our society as a whole, governments need to understand our generation, how we feel, just as they needed to have understood the hippie generation, how they feel. I apologise because I think I'm getting somewhere with this video because my camera is about to run out of battery, so yeah, I might make part 2 to this, but my generation is part of an apathetic generation, perceived to be, but we're not really apathetic, we're just misunderstood at the time. And for the record, politics is an important thing. Give a fuck about politics. It might be a bit boring, but give a fuck about it because it affects every single last fucking one of us, regardless of whether you're a fucking stupid rich white kid, or regardless of whether you're, you know, a working, or an underclass, as Charles Murray might have once put it, an underclass African or white kid, or whatever, or ethnic minority, I suppose is the correct terminology, but it's all important, and that, I think, is the